Ronald Wilson Reagan was born in 1911 in Illinois. His father was a shoe salesman. The family resided in an apartment that lacked indoor plumbing and running water. In 1928, Reagan graduated from Dixon High School in Dixon, Illinois. He was an athlete and student body president. He went on to attend Eureka College in Illinois. After graduating in 1932, he found work as a radio sports announcer in Iowa. He then decided to move to California to try and become an actor. He successfully auditioned for a role in his first film debut, In Love Is in the Air, playing a radio news reporter. Over the next 3 decades, he appeared in more than 50 movies. In 1940, Reagan married actress Jane Wyman, divorcing in 1948 and remarrying in 1952 to actress Nancy Davis. During World War II, Reagan was disqualified from combat duty due to poor eyesight, and spent his time in the Army making training films. From 1959 to 1960, Reagan served as president of the Screen Actors Guild. He also toured the United States as a public relations representative for General Electric, giving pro-business talks in which he spoke out against too much government control and wasteful spending. In his younger years, Ronald Reagan was a member of the Democratic Party and campaigned for Democratic candidates. His views grew more conservative over time. In the early 1960s, he officially became a Republican. In 1964, Reagan stepped into the national political spotlight when he gave a well-received televised speech for Republican presidential candidate Barry Goldwater. 2 years later, in his first race for public office, Reagan defeated Democratic incumbent Pat Brown to win the governorship of California. After making unsuccessful bids for the Republican presidential nomination in 1968 and 1976, Reagan received his party's nod in 1980. In that year's general election, he and running mate George H.W. Bush faced off against President Jimmy Carter and Vice President Walter Mondale. Reagan won the election by an electoral margin of 489 to 49. Just over 2 months after his inauguration, on March 30, 1981, Reagan survived an assassination attempt by John Hinckley Jr., a man with a history of psychiatric problems, outside a hotel in Washington, D.C. The gunman's bullet pierced one of the president's lungs and narrowly missed his heart. Within several weeks of the shooting, Reagan was back at work. President Ronald Reagan implemented policies to reduce the federal government's reach into the daily lives and pocketbooks of Americans, including tax cuts intended to spur growth, known as Reaganomics. He implemented reductions in certain social programs and measures to deregulate business. By 1983, the nation's economy had started to recover and enter a period of prosperity that would extend through the rest of Reagan's presidency. Critics maintained that his policies led to budget deficits and a more significant national debt. Some also held that his economic programs favor the rich. In November 1984, Ronald Reagan was re-elected in a landslide, defeating Walter Mondale and his running mate Geraldine Ferraro, the first female vice presidential candidate from a major U.S. political party. Reagan carried 49 out of 50 states in the election and received 525 out of 538 electoral votes, the largest number ever won by an American presidential candidate. After leaving the White House in January 1989, Ronald Reagan and his wife returned to California, where they lived in Los Angeles. On June 5, 2004, Reagan died at his Los Angeles home at age 93.